Glasses in session. We go to the Glasser guest line. Anthony Totri joins us. Give Anthony a follow on X at Anthony_Totri. Arizona State Sun Devil beat reporter and host of Phoenix Sun Devils as well. Anthony, great having you on the show, man. And ASU last year, one of the best stories in college football. They were picked in the preseason to finish last in the Big 12. And as we know, they end up winning the conference, going to the college football playoff. They bring a lot of those guys back, a lot of returning production. Obviously, they're missing the heart and soul, Scadaboo, the running back. But just looking at this team, Anthony, on paper, you think Arizona State might be better this year than they were last season?
But yeah, absolutely, right? Everybody wants to talk about Cam Scadaboo moving on from college football to the New York Giants. But I do honestly think that this team, if not better, be equal to what they were a season ago. And I think Kenny Dillingham would probably double down and tell you that this team is better. And a lot of that has to do with the competitive depth, not just with the starters, but the 2 deep and the 3 deep. You look at where this team is right now at wide receiver specifically, it is a much deeper room than it was a year ago. We know about the prowess and the talent of Jordan Tyson, probably a top 3 wide receiver in college football, but they went to the portal and they got some dudes. They got Fresno State transfer wide receiver Jalen Moss, who's coming off that, I believe, 10 touchdowns in his combined last 2 years with the Bulldogs. And then they went to Bama. They got themselves a speedster, Jaron Hamilton, also a wideout nicknamed Turbo, and he's been showcasing that just about every single practice. Not to mention you return Malik McClain. Then you look at the running back room, kind of the same thing. A lot deeper. Do they have a Cam Scadaboo on the roster in the running back room? Probably not. But they got 3 very, very serviceable guys in Tyson Brown, Malik Brown, and Kanye Udo.
You think Leavitt has a legit shot to win the Heisman this year, Anthony? I mean, you bring up the wide receiver room and all those guys coming back. He's going to have one of the best receivers, if not the best, in the Big 12 in Jordan Tyson. You think there's a legit shot that if ASU has another season like they did last year, Leavitt could find himself in New York?
I think that's definitely a possibility, but it really does hinge on what you finished up saying right there, right? Is if ASU has a season like they did a year ago, then maybe Sam Leavitt's in that conversation. Certainly, Arizona State has to win this conference if Sam Leavitt is going to get that kind of love. You saw it last year. Yes, Travis Hunter won it, but ultimately probably only because he was somebody playing offense and defense, right? A team that doesn't make the conference championship at a premier position like quarterback, it's going to be a tough sell to actually make it as a Heisman finalist. But I think Sam Leavitt certainly has that capability. I think something that you're going to see a lot more this year than you did last year was his ability to use his legs. You saw it at times for the Sun Devils in 2024, but they had Cam Scadaboo. They don't have him now. I think Sam Leavitt's probably the 4th running back, is like we call him on the show, for the Sun Devils here in 2025.
Yeah, that offense is going to be really good again, but the defense should be really solid again this year as well. They have a lot of guys coming back on that side of the ball. Which unit on ASU's defense this year, Anthony, do you think is going to be the most solid?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to have to go with the secondary. I think this is a secondary that is returning just about everybody in terms of starters. I mean, the defense in general is returning 10 of 11 starters, minus their nickel corner from a year ago and Shamari Simmons, who's just out of eligibility. But that secondary is going to feature Keith Abney, Javen Robinson, the 2 starting corners from a year ago. You look on the back end, Miles Rouser, Xavier Alford, probably the best safety duo by my estimation in this conference. And then there's some really solid depth around there, trying to replace that starting nickel corner spot with either Montana Warren, who was a part of Kenny Dillingham's first recruiting class here, or Kendrick Breedlove, Purdue transfer. You look outside of that, Rodney Bimage, also another guy who had committed to ASU. He's in the secondary rotation. Nyland Green, that should ring some bells, a former 5-star who was previously at Georgia, then Purdue, and now in Tempe at Arizona State. So the secondary, they got some dudes, man, but specifically when it comes to those starters, it's a scary 4.
We're talking Arizona State with Anthony Totri here on Send It In. Give Anthony a follow on X at Anthony_Totri. For a team that has so much coming back, Anthony, and again, you do lose Scadaboo with the quarterback, the running back, or the wide receiver, I should say. You mentioned all the guys on defense coming back. They still are co-favorites to win this league in the Big 12. So entering the season, what do you think is the biggest question mark you have about this Arizona State team?
Yeah, it's something that we've been talking about really over the last couple of weeks. And that big question is, what does the center position look like? Because everyone's talking about the loss of Cam Scatterbo in the backfield, maybe the loss of Shamari Simmons at nickel on defense, but nobody's really talking about the loss of starting center Leif Fautanu, who has been the starting center for Arizona State the last couple of seasons, also somebody that didn't have any eligibility left. So Arizona State opting to kick their premier left guard from last season, Ben Coleman, kick him inside to center. There's been some competition the last couple of weeks of whether or not it was going to be Ben Coleman starting at center or if it was going to be Wade Helton, a redshirt freshman Iowa State transfer. Dilly did announce on Saturday officially that Ben Coleman will be the starting center for Arizona State. So I think that's probably the biggest question I have is this offensive line as efficient and as connected as it was just last season?
ASU's got a tough schedule, one of the tougher ones I've seen in the Big 12 this season. Road trips to Waco, Salt Lake City, Ames. They got to take on Iowa State, Utah, and Baylor. Also home games against TCU and Texas Tech. When you look at the schedule, Anthony, when you kind of dissect all the different games, which one stood out to you as the game that you think might be the most important this year or the toughest one for ASU to potentially win?
Yeah, I think honestly two different answers there. If we're talking probably the most important game for ASU in 2025, I don't know how you can look past that Iowa State matchup in November in Ames. This is obviously a game that Rocco Beck and company want get back for that Big 12 championship beatdown just last December. You saw what Iowa State did, getting a big ranked win in week 0 to open up the season. So it's tough to look past that game for me. I know there's going to be a lot of folks that say maybe that Texas Tech game with all the hype, but I think for me, maybe the most challenging game or the game that I am maybe like bite my nails a little bit if I'm an Arizona State fan, that's got to be the Utah game. It's always a tough place to play when you're on the road at Utah. Kyle Whittingham, despite a really down year for the Utes last year, is one of the best coaches in college football by my estimation. Just a historic coach, and he always knows how to build a winner. Going to be a tough team to play in mid-October.
You look at Arizona State's win total this season at BetMGM, 8.5. So they're expecting either like 8-4, 9-3 season out of Arizona State. What would be your prediction for the Sun Devils record this season?
Yeah, we actually just did our season predictions on Friday, and I've got Arizona State hitting the over. I've got this team at 10-2 in the regular season. A couple of games that you could maybe argue back and forth. I know there's going to be a lot of folks interested in that Baylor game early in the year. TCU's a fun wild card. You bring up Texas Tech. Who knows? Maybe Colorado puts it together. Iowa State. At the end of the day, this defense is one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the Big 12. They're going to show that through the first 3 weeks of the season, I think. And then Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson are potentially the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the country, not just the Big 12. I think by the time you get to conference play, this team is going to be really, really firing on all cylinders. And yeah, there are a couple of games that I think throughout the year that this team probably ends up losing out on. But at the end of the day, it would be a pretty disappointing season if this team lost more than 3 or 4 games.
If you were to look at ASU this season, Anthony, would you rather place a wager on them to win the Big 12 again or make the college football playoff? Because again, with that schedule, maybe they lose some tiebreakers. They don't go to Dallas, but if they finish the season, let's say 10-2, still might find themselves in the playoff. You think better chance this year? Would you rather take the playoff bet or for them to win the conference?
Ooh, I'm going to have to take probably winning the conference here. I think we saw it in week 0 between Kansas State and Iowa State. There are still a lot of teams in this conference that, yes, they are talented. Yes, they're top 25 teams, but they got some things to work out, right? We saw arguably 2 of the best 3 teams in this conference just this past Saturday. Kansas State looked really out of sync offensively. Iowa State was getting bullied in the trenches early on in that game. Still not a lot of answers at wide receiver after losing their 2,000-yard guys a year ago. I think Arizona State is the cream of the crop in this conference. So if I had to put money on it, either the CFP or winning the Big 12, Arizona State going back-to-back for the first time since the Sooners did it some time ago.
Love it. And then before we let you go, I've been asking this to all the Big 12 guests that we've had on because, I mean, the odds for all these teams to win the league is so jumbled towards the top. Who is the team that worries you the most in the Big 12 for Arizona State?
Worries me the most is an interesting way to phrase that question. I would say probably Iowa State. This is a team that, again, despite some of the issues we saw over the weekend, Rocco Becht is one of the best quarterbacks in this conference, one of the most experienced quarterbacks in this conference. And he has the pleasure of, his coach being the same as it's been the last several years, one of the best coaches in Matt Campbell that the Big 12 has seen. He's got that program just churning out talent. So I would say if there's anybody to worry about, it's probably the Iowa State Cyclones.